So, good day, listeners and viewers. It is Adrienne Somerville and my partner, Michael Taylor, here again to share a very interesting topic, a topic that I think is growing in terms of its relevance and its potential impact that it can have on any organization. Our special guest is Miss Emily Harman. Emily Harman and I have a long history of not only friendship, but in a personal capacity, but also a professional capacity. And she served in a number of roles as a contracting officer, as a director of the small business programs across the United States Navy. And also now she is also a leader in her own right as an entrepreneur, but is here tonight to talk specifically about positive intelligence. And so we're going to get right into it. But before we get started, I'd like to afford Emily an opportunity to tell you a little bit about herself, more in detail, and also more importantly, about what is positive intelligence, and more importantly, why is it so important today?
Thanks, Adrienne and Michael. I really appreciate being on this show and talking about my favorite topic, positive intelligence. And so I'll start a little bit about myself. I grew up in Northern Virginia playing basketball and recruited by a lot of different schools. And one of them was the Naval Academy. So I ended up going to the Naval Academy, not knowing a lot about what I was getting myself into. But after graduating from there in 1985, I ended up spending 34 years of my life working for the Navy, either as an officer or as a civilian supporting the military warfighter. So that's how Adrienne and I met. We worked in the same reserve unit. I'm sorry, I have a cough. The reserve unit together. You were an ensign. I think I was like a lieutenant or a lieutenant commander or something like that. And so I was in government contracting, and then I ended up, like Adrienne said, being the director of small business programs for the Navy and the Marine Corps, the Department of the Navy. When I retired in 2019, I decided I wanted to be a professional coach. So when you're a coach, you end up working a lot on yourself first, because you got to understand yourself before you can coach others. And the reason I wanted to be a coach is because I was first exposed to a coach when I was a senior executive. And I thought, oh my gosh, I could have used this coach when I was like a GS 11 or a 13. I mean, everybody could you benefit from a coach. And, I retired at age 56, which was my minimum retirement age. And I was just busy in that job as the director of small business programs for the Department of the Navy, traveling all the time. I had a demanding boss, I was demanding on myself. And so I just knew that when I retired, my life was going to be so much better. My external circumstance would change, and I was going to be in, just really loving life. That didn't happen. I called my retirement a graduation, I'm graduating.
Right.
Things. But I was busier than ever. And I was like, why am I so busy? I don't have to work. I don't have to become a coach. I'm creating this work. Wait a second. Did I do that when I was with the Navy? So I learned that when we point our finger at an external circumstance, like the job was making me busy or my boss or whatever, we have three pointing back at us. So I was like, oh, okay. So I became more aware. And one of the things that I discovered was the positive intelligence coaching program. And I ended up becoming certified in it. And I've been through their mastery program as well. And in that program, you learn about how your mind works, because it's based on neuroscience and positive behavior, positive psychology. It's based on science, but you learn how your mind works. And, we all have that survival brain. And Shazad Shamin, who's the founder of the program, did some, he basically got to root cause analysis. What's the root cause of how we self-sabotage? And he determined that there are 9 ways that we self-sabotage. One, we all have a judge in our mind that you're familiar with your judge, I'm sure, that your inner critic, right? Mm-hmm. Tells us things. We all have an inner critic.
Hardest on ourselves.
Yeah, hardest on ourselves. We also, our judge judges other people, circumstances, and situations. And I guarantee you it's more than you are even aware of until when you go through the program, you expose those lies. But The judge then recruits one of 9 other saboteurs, and I'll name them: the avoider, the controller, the hyperachiever, hyper-rational, the pleaser, the restless, the stickler, and the victim. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh yeah, my significant other has that one, and my boss is that one. I encourage you to first to look at, well, because it's easy to see them in others. Can you see them in yourself? And we all have them, and they generate thoughts. So the reason I was so busy was because of my restless saboteur, which is always gets bored and always creating new things for me to do. What's the cause of that restless? It was my inability to sit with my feelings. How did that happen? And I have the pleaser and the hyperachiever too. I can tell you how they all developed. I was a basketball player. I was good. I was the leading scorer in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. Could have scored 40 points in a game. My dad would say, good game. Now, you remember that time you went right? You should have gone left. So I, in response to that, developed a pleaser, trying to please my dad, and to hyperachieve, to always be achieving, to do better. And I think, not blaming my parents, but my mom's just always busy. She would say, do something. Like, just sitting around and just thinking or something wasn't acceptable. You got to be doing something. So I'm just always doing something. So I can see how they developed, and they might have served me to survive in my childhood. And I had a good childhood, but they're not serving me now. They weren't serving me when I retired. And so that's what was life-changing for me. And that's why I became the director of government accounts for Positive Intelligence, because I said to them, it's a new company, fairly new company, government organizations and organizations that support the government. I mean, we know everybody needs this, but they didn't have anybody in government sales that really knew government. And so that's why they brought me on. So that's a little background.
Wow. No, that's amazing, because so it's interesting. How did you discover, first of all, I know you appreciate your journey, but how did you discover what your saboteurs were initially?
Right. So Positive Intelligence has an assessment on their website that you can take. You go to the website, and I think you guys can share it later, but it's the saboteur assessment, and it's free. And you can take that, and then you'll get your results sent to you. Now, we all have, we all have the controller, right? We're all trying to control our lives, make sure we don't get in trouble, make sure that everything happens the way we want. Some people have a much stronger controller than others. Mine's not as strong, but we all have, these saboteurs all show up, but you'll get a bar chart that shows the ones that show up the most. And then you can read the book or go on the website and learn about the thoughts that those saboteurs generate. Because, a lot of us are looking for different results. Whereas organizations are looking for different results. The government's looking to improve and for different results. And, our thoughts lead us to feel emotions and have emotions and feelings, which those emotions and feelings is what can generate us to take action or inaction, which gives us our results. So if we want different results, we got to start at the thoughts. And what I see a lot of organizations doing, I can only talk to government because that's what I really worked, is changing the external circumstances, writing a new policy, saying that Congress needs to pass a new law, streamlining the process, changing a lot, maybe changing leadership, reorganizing. That's all the external stuff. They're not getting to the thoughts of the people that have to implement all of that.
The lonely work that people have to do in terms of their self-assessment, I always call it, and reflection, right?
Yeah, that, and what is the avoider going to think about a reorg in the organization? If you're trying to lead change, all of these saboteurs are going to come out. What
Mm-hmm.
does my avoider think? What does the controller think about a reorganization? How, the Navy's asking people to get real, get better. Well, take a tough assessment of yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
Emily, there's so many assessments out there. They have the Myers-Briggs, they have the MBTI, they have the Strength Finders, they have Emergenetics, they have, so many DISC,
Mm-hmm.
and I could just go on and on. What made you focus in on the positive intelligence one?
It gets to the root
Great
cause.
question.
I'm a coach, and I coach. It's on my LinkedIn profile. I coach for the Darden Foundation at the University of Virginia, and they have a contract with a big government organization, and I coach those GS-15s and senior executives. They've taken a lot of those assessments, and they've got their 360. I asked them to take one more assessment. Take this free saboteur assessment. Boom. The minute I know what their saboteurs are, I can get a feel. I don't know exactly, but I can get a feel for what thoughts they have that are generating their results on their 360. Sometimes they might say, "Oh, I know who answered that question, and it's because they." Okay, how do you
I've seen that happen a time or two.
That's what I
said. Losing sight of the real purpose, right? Trying to figure out who's coming for them, right? Who's trying to destroy them. Yeah.
Right. And so, the fact that you're blue, green, or whatever, that doesn't really get to the root cause of how we self-sabotage and how we cause stress. Anytime you're feeling stress, overwhelm, anxiety, any negative emotion, it's caused by your saboteurs. And when you strengthen your mental fitness, which is what positive intelligence, that's the name of the company, and they help you learn how to strengthen your mental fitness, you are able to approach life's challenges with a more positive rather than a negative mindset. And I'm not talking about changing, just coming up with some positive mantra. We're talking about creating a new neural pathway in your brain so that your brain has access, you have access to another part of your brain. So when you strengthen your mental fitness, first, you strengthen 3 muscles. One is the saboteur interceptor. Many people are not consciously aware of when they're upset or what they're feeling, that they're feeling a negative emotion. Sometimes, I did it for a long time, you shove those negative emotions down and you push right by them. You just
the queen of compartmentalization is what I used to say.
Yeah.
Not that it's a healthy characteristic, but it is a surviving mechanism.
It's a way to survive. But, like I used to host a podcast. One of my guests said, when you shove your feelings to the basement, they lift weights. And they do. You're going to face those feelings at some point in your life, maybe not right now. So number one, and I think a lot of us think that, well, we should feel stressed or this is normal, but we're not meant to be stressed and in fight or flight all the time. So if you're feeling any negative emotion, stop. That's your saboteur interceptor muscle. Notice it. Then you strengthen your self-command muscle, which is you controlling your brain instead of your brain controlling you. I can tell you how to do that. Then you have access to a new neural pathway. The saboteurs live in the left side of your brain. You have access to the right side of your brain, which is where you have 5 sage powers. You have empathy, the ability to have empathy for yourself and for other people. You have the ability to explore, to explore other options. When you're stressed out and just anxious, you can't think of anything else. So now you have the ability to explore, well, what else could be true? And I'll give you an example, a personal example in a minute. You're able to innovate. You're able to get more innovative and creative and come up with ideas other than what your saboteurs tell you is the only solution. You're able to navigate. You're able to see the big picture and make decisions aligned with your values and maybe the organization's values. And you're able to activate, which is to take calm, clear-headed action without being distracted by your saboteurs. Now, this is a personal example, but just the other day, I was trying to reach my son and his wife about doing something with my grandson, who's 7. And his wife is usually she's the one that, she has the controller saboteur. She wouldn't want to meet up with you. And she's usually the one that's controlling the schedule, right?
Right.
So she didn't, and then they make a point too. These saboteurs are helpful if they're not stressing you out. So to be able to, be in control of a situation and to plan, it's all helpful. To achieve, I have the hyperachiever, nothing wrong with it. But when I'm achieving because I'm in push energy and stress and anxiety,
That's
you
when it's
can achieve
unhealthy.
more in ease and flow. So these saboteurs cause us to, do things, but with stress. So anyway, she didn't return my messages. So my judge said, this is bad. This is bad. She's not returning your messages. And Marshall, your grandson, Emily, is 7. Now, when William, my son, when William was 7, you got a divorce. So the reason that Corinne is not responding to you is because they're getting a divorce. It's obvious. Now, that is ridiculous,
Yeah.
But our brain will go and look for something that happened in the
Yes.
past to make sense of what's happening now. And if I wasn't aware, I could believe that, and I could stress, and I could worry, and I could be all anxious. And when really the reason, instead of doing what we call PQ rep to help you get centered, I just take a few minutes, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. When your mind wanders, you bring it back. You say, no, I'm in control of you, not the saboteurs. And then you have access to, well, what else could be true? Well, maybe she's sick. Maybe she's busy, all these other things.
Yeah. You stop.
Uh-oh.
Looks like Adrian disappeared.
Right.
Adrian, your picture disappeared.
Your face is
Oh, it
gone,
did?
Adrian. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
hopefully that comes back.
Emily, I wanted to ask you, while Adrian's adjusting her camera, what is a layman's terminology for saboteurs? Would it be would it be your fears? Would it be your demons? Would it be your negative energy? What would be layman's terminology for saboteurs?
all those is what it could be. They're driven by fear. They like to keep you in your comfort zone, right? If you want people to be innovative, to take risks, to get real, get better, like the Navy does, to explore new options, to be able to accept, to fail, fear driven, they're going to keep you, their thoughts are going to keep you in your comfort zone. Right. So I would say that's it.
Yeah, you said something earlier, and this is something I know whether you work for a company or whether you're leading a company or an agency or organization, that a lot of people are dealing with the stress and reorganizations and realignments, and that there are these saboteurs that creep in. And I know we're all are concerned about productivity, right? And our people, or should be, and their outputs and contributions. And so when I think of it, it can be a very intense, you hear about anxiety these days, and more people, I unprecedentedly today, to me, when I think of anxiety, you hear more about people having anxiety or some sort of anxiety medicine to even sleep, more so than any time ever. How can you leverage this organizationally so that people can be at ease and be comfortable with change and still be included, whether you are whether you transform quickly or whether you tend to hold on to the past and you're a restorer of an organization? How are we being inclusive and ensuring that we're giving something in terms of positive intelligence that touches everyone so they stay connected and integrated, but they can manage their anxiety and stress and also evolved in most organizations?
Yeah. Well, if I get off track, steer me back. But I would say, first off, I feel like organizations need to look at training differently than they maybe have in the past. You're not going to send somebody to a 1-day positive intelligence training and have them come back changed. Or, you send them to emotional intelligence. When we send people to training, typically they come back with insight. They know what to do. Like you go, train at the gym for a day. Oh, yeah, I know how to lift weights. But if you don't do the lifting of the weights, your body is not going to transform. So as the director of government contracting for Positive Intelligence, a lot of what I hear is, yeah, come give this workshop. And I tell them, I can give a workshop. You're not going to see any change in your organization, or very little. It requires doing those mental exercises to create those new neural pathways in your brain. And actually they can tell, they have an app that you use that will show you if that your mental muscle is growing, because we can't put everybody under a functional MRI, right? But with functional MRIs are now, when you create a new neural pathway, the blood flows different in your brain. So maybe somebody cutting you off in traffic really gets you mad and you get so angry. And then after you've built up your positive intelligence, you don't even notice it anymore. Because your threshold has changed. And so that could be the same for anxiety, right? The things that cause you're anxious about everything, your anxiety threshold raises. So some of these things that happen don't even hit your buttons, right? But it takes some work. It's not going to training to learn something. So that's one thing organizations can do, is to understand that in order to have this transformation, people have to work on themselves. Not everybody wants to do that. But because these saboteurs are contagious. So if I'm in this meeting right now with us, and I'm stressed, I'm anxious because I'm late, and oh my gosh, and you're going to pick up on that, and it might hijack your pleaser saboteur, and you might try to please to get me, and everyone's just like their actions are driven by their saboteurs because they're contagious, because of mirror neurons in our brain. So the other thing that's contagious is the sage, the calm, cool-headed thinking, the ability to self-center. So when you change, you'll notice your world around you changes. So maybe not everyone in the organization changes right away, but you get a certain number of people going through the program. Start with the people that want to. They start changing. And I've seen it where comments we get, well, I want to know what you're doing. How did you handle that so easily? And that's how it changes. Plus we can teach, we call it coaching 2.0. The current way of coaching that most coaches use is to ask you empowering questions to pull some answers out of you. We have a different way of coaching, which is to, we have a 7-step process that we can teach people in the organizations. So then what if you were able to develop a coaching philosophy, a coaching organization where, Adrian, you're able to notice that somebody that's working for you might be feeling a little hijacked and by their saboteurs and kind of stressed, and you're able to coach them through a situation. Imagine that.
Well, I would imagine that would have a huge impact on things like productivity, performance, retention, right?
Yes.
Strengthen relationships even.
Yes.
When you think about that in terms of someone said this to me earlier today, the why and the what for people, right? Things that connective tissue to an organization, they thought perhaps could be weakening over time if we're not making these investments in people. And this spills, and we're all humans, right? So you have a professional side and a personal side. People are trying to juggle both. Even in a hybrid work environment, you're trying to juggle both. I would offer that having the positive intelligence attributes infused in your day-to-day living, wouldn't you say it not only impacted your personal life, but your professional life, even in your graduate life?
Totally. After I've graduated. Yes, totally. It impacts both. And what we offer is when you go through the positive intelligence, we offer that the family members get access to the app. They don't get the coach kind of leading them through the program, but they get access to the app. So then you're all installing, like you're upgrading your mind.
Saving marriages.
You're saving marriages, saving how you handle your kids. In fact, there's parenting resources in the app. It really is, kids teenagers can understand this. You can even simplify it so kids as young as 7 can understand it. But yes, I think people, work life impacts home and home impacts work, and
Hmm.
there's not always a boundary there. Um, and definitely we have metrics that show it improves performance, relationships, and well-being. And a lot of people
Wow.
think, wow, if I really want to succeed at work, my well-being and relationships are going to suffer. I'm not going to be able to work out. I'm not, probably going to be snippy because I'm working a lot. So, but we're saying, no, none of them have to suffer.
Mhm.
And I
Hmm.
will tell you, it's taken me some time, but when I graduated, I was taking 20 milligrams of fluoxetine, which is Prozac, that
Mm.
was prescribed to me when I became like perimenopausal, menopause, whatever.
Hmm.
And every time I went back to the doctor, she'd say, "Is there any stress in your life?" I'm like, "Yeah," you know. So I
Don't
never
you
came
hate
off.
that question? It's like, what is like? I don't even have a point of reference for not having stress in my life. So
Yeah,
when they ask that question, you're like, of course, who
of course
doesn't?
I have
Find
stress.
me
Okay,
someone who doesn't.
more pills.
Exactly. Yeah.
I ended my pills. I'm not taking any fluoxetine now. You can't just come off it like that. It was gradually over like a 3-year period, gradually, and working
Wow.
on myself and working on my reactions. And just a few weeks ago, I was at a Navy command giving a presentation. And during the break, I checked my phone. And it was a picture of my daughter who's 27 with an oxygen mask on her face saying, "They're sending me by ambulance to the hospital." And
Whoa.
I was able to remain in the present moment, to remain calm, clear headed and she was in the hospital for 4 days. Without my depression medicine, I did not leave my center. Yeah, I wasn't,
Mm.
worrying about the future and the past and getting anxious and none of that.
Hmm.
I was able to deal with it
That's
without meds,
powerful.
without a coach.
Mhm. That's very powerful. I can see how it would affect an organization positively, because when you think about it, especially, I'm an executive coach as well. Um, and of course, we use another model. We use Sherpa, we use Inside Out Coaching. But when you think about this positive intelligence, you know, it does what you have on the inside illuminates. And
Hmm.
and when other people see that in you, they say, "I want some of that."
Right.
And when the leadership are having this experience of positive intelligence, when the leadership kind of define the culture of the organization. So when the leadership is taking this positive intelligence and they're demonstrating it, and they're demonstrating this empathy, and they're demonstrating this innovativeness, and everything, these powers, it illuminates, and they say, "Hey, I wanna
Hmm.
be like him, or I wanna be like her." And it creates that referent power where they trust, and they say, "Hey, Emily, how did you do that? What are you doing?" Or, you know, and, I want some of that as well. So I
Yeah.
can definitely
Hmm.
see and visualize, just looking at the big picture, how that would flow throughout the organization, just creating that nice culture. And when you do have that culture like that, a culture like that with the innovation and the all those powers and that sage mentality, you will get better performance. You'll get people
Hmm.
say, instead of saying, "I have to go to work," they'll say, "I get to go to work," or "I want to go to work."
Right.
You're exactly right.
Right.
I love supporting positive intelligence. I'm not their employee. They hire me through my business.
Mhm.
But so many people say, well, with remote work, I don't know my people and all that. I'm closer to. I've never met any of the employees in person, but I know them probably more than I did when I worked for than my employees when I worked for the Navy. Part of that's because I've tamed my hyperachiever, which is all focused on achieving and not enough
Right.
about the empathy. And that's one
Mm.
of the reasons I think I retired is because I felt like I wasn't exhibiting that empathy. I didn't like who I was becoming, but I didn't know how to
Mm.
change it. And I've since learned I have a big heart, and I'm really empathetic.
You too.
But
I
I think
always
a
knew
lot of
that.
the military like shove that down, help you
Yeah,
shut
but I
down.
knew underneath, like, it's like in these roles, you feel like you have to conform sometimes outside of who you are, which is also a struggle,
Yeah,
right? And you have that negative aspect of that saboteur coming in where you're trying to get that part of you to settle down and be more accepting of change or accepting of a different person or accepting of a different style. And you mentioned earlier, Emily, that there's a way when you feel it coming on, whatever that saboteur is kind of coming up that brain and that neuron is flickering, and you're like, I just hate dealing with this right now.
mhm,
That there is a way to immediately gain control and change immediately,
yeah.
via practicing. What is that methodology that I could do or someone else could do to just regain control in that fleeting moment? Because I have 2 seconds and I'm crossing the threshold of this daunting meeting with these people I just loathe.
Right.
That,
First, so 3 mental
not that I
muscles.
have that experience because I
No,
love all
no,
my
you
people,
don't.
but just saying.
Notice. Some people don't notice, or you might notice it too late, right? We all boil over and then, "Oh, why'd I say that?" Right? You don't even notice. Notice. And we would say, notice that your hand's on, it's like your hand on a hot stove. How long do you want to leave it
Mhm.
there? It's telling you something. Your feeling in your body and your anxiety and whatever else is coming up for you, your anger is telling you something. Stop. Do a PQ rep, which I'll show you. And then you can access those sage powers where you can maybe think differently. It takes
Okay.
practice. It doesn't come overnight. And one of the things I like about the coaching program is you're able to share. Like somebody might share, I got hijacked yesterday because of this. And so, oh, that happens to me too. And, you have compassion for each other, but you coach each other
Mhm.
along. So the PQ rep is really just bringing your mind to the current moment, because a lot of our stress happens when we worry about the future or think about the past. And you bring your mind, focus it on a sensation or a sound. So a couple of ones that you can do is just close your eyes and rub your fingers together, two fingers together, and just notice the ridges on your fingertips. And when your mind wanders, like, oh my God, this is stupid, or whatever, say, no, I'm bringing it back to the fingers. So you're training your brain. Now you can do that for 2 minutes or a minute. That's like lifting. That's going to enable you, if you practice, to lift or to address 2 or 1 pound problems or challenges, right?
Mhm.
So some people
This is
start
that
off,
mindfulness and still being still
yeah,
and mindful.
mindfulness. And some people start off their morning with like a 15 minutes of that. So it really gets their battery charged. They're really more, and on our app, we have a battery. So if you go into a meeting with your battery not charged because you haven't done any of these PQ reps, then you're likely to get
Mhm.
hijacked. So
Mm.
you go in, so you charge up your battery by doing some PQ reps. You might focus just like this on your hand, just for a few minutes, maybe before a meeting. I think we all go to the bathroom. So when you go to the bathroom and wash your hands, you just notice the water flowing over your hands. You're not thinking about
Mhm.
the meeting you're going to or what has to happen. When you're waiting for a Zoom call and to start and people are joining in, you might just focus or you see the circle dialing, you just focus on
Mhm.
that. Your mind wanders, you bring it back. Or you might just focus your eyes on somebody. Like I could look at Michael's eyes right now. I'm just focusing on Michael's eyes. He doesn't know that's what I'm doing. So I'm doing a PQ rep
Mhm.
while I'm in a meeting,
Wow.
right? When you walk, you how many of us walk our dog and we're on our phone or we're thinking about the past or the future?
Yep.
You notice your feet as they touch the ground. You notice the feeling. You listen for the farthest away sound or the closest sound. So you're just training your brain to not wander, because you're in charge of your brain, not your saboteurs.
Yeah.
I like
And
that.
I do, because one of the things I am committed to focusing on, and I just started this, is being present and connected. Like I can easily be present but not connected. It's analogous to having your iPhone on your night table stand, but it's just not charged in, but it's present, right?
Mhm.
And so it's a lot like just really being in the moment and just appreciating experiences. I don't know if it's just you get older, but you feel like you're like, I got to make that call, that things to do list. Did I call Michael back? Oh, I forgot to send that email. I
That's
owe
causing you
someone.
stress. That's your
Oh my
hyperachiever,
gosh.
or you're restless, or whatever,
Yes.
causing those thoughts.
Yes, and that's why at 2 a.m., Michael and I are still talking because it's that one additional thing. But I really would like, and I would love for our listeners and our watchers to get to this place of like, it's okay to have that moment of clarity where, like, when someone says, like, what are you thinking about? And I love the people that say nothing. I'm like, what the heck is not who
Mhm.
the how do you like what do you mean? Like that doesn't even I'm not thinking about anything. I've got like 10 things over here and another thing, another five if I open my phone and look at the things I itemized. And so that whole I'm not really thinking about anything. I literally used to say I have no point of reference for thinking about like I'm not thinking about anything, like nothing.
Well,
And
I use,
so
yeah.
that I think it causes peace too.
Oh, it causes peace. I used to have to go camping to get out in the woods, to get away from where I live in order to relax.
Yeah. And if I don't
Now I
take
can
my cell
relax in
phone
my
and my
home.
computer, I have a bit of separation anxiety.
Mhm.
And then halfway through a vacation, I start thinking, oh my God, it's about to end. So I have all those other things that but I am working. And a couple of times recently, I had to be reminded to stay checked in.
That's what
And it
this
was like,
does.
yeah,
So
that
imagine
was a
if,
big aha for me.
yeah, imagine if at work you started your meetings with a PQ rep. 1 minute,
Hmm.
everybody does a PQ rep because people are rushing, they're here, they're there, they're not
Yeah.
really focused. You do a PQ rep. What if you just say, we're going to commit to ending our meetings at 25 after instead of 30 after, so that everyone has a little bit of time, I mean,
Yeah.
that would happen. And then what if, like, when something happened recently at Positive Intelligence, where Shazad Shamin, the founder, you're not going to go through this program and never get hijacked. Okay. He's been working on this for his whole life. He gets hijacked. He gets hijacked in a meeting. He's stressed. And someone in the meeting said, I'd like to do a PQ rep right now. And
Mm.
so that's a notice that, it's letting people know there's psychological safety there. She can say, she's noticing she's getting stressed, probably noticing other people are getting stressed. So imagine where you could say, let's all do a PQ rep, and no one's going to challenge that
Yeah.
because that's your culture.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so nice.
Or yeah, when you're having these dissenting opinions, and sometimes people are drifting away from the facts of the subject matter, and it's just becoming more emotional. If you could do one of those PQ reps, because I saw Michael had an extended PQ rep, I think, Emily. He was really in that space.
You know why,
But I
Adrian?
think
Because
why?
sometimes I go into these meetings, like, I'm at work and it's a meeting and back to back to back to back meetings, right? And in half the meetings I have to chair. And sometimes I go into my meetings at work, and right after the meeting, I could not tell you who said what happened, because my mind was thinking about all the different tasks that I have to do,
Oh
all the
wow.
different meetings that I have to set up, all the things that I have to facilitate, the strategic planning,
Hmm.
the mirror board diagrams that I have to create. I mean, my mind is just stretched, and so sometimes I'm in these meetings and I'm like you said, I'm present, but I'm really not present. So I'm like,
Right.
maybe that's a technique that I can
You're
use, kind of like bring myself back.
You're not
hmm
alone. Everybody's like that. How do you think that impacts
right.
the organization,
Yeah.
productivity, and everything? We tend to think, I'm the only one that thinks this, or I'm the only one that,
Yeah.
is this
Hmm.
way. Everybody's like that. If you were able to put a little cloud over everyone's, thought cloud of
Right.
all the stress that these saboteurs are causing.
Yeah.
This is why. this program is so powerful because it can really help an entire organization change. It will help with customer service. It will help with employee wellness. You know, the World Economic Forum says that the cost of mental health conditions is going to rise to 6 trillion globally by 2030.
Yeah,
We got to do
I
some
believe it.
preventive maintenance on us.
and you know, and
Yeah.
a lot of communities don't even receive the funding for mental health.
I know.
So that's really
Mm.
sad. You know, I did have a coworker that used to start her meetings off by taking peppermint, the peppermint oil, and putting it in the palm of her hand and just inhaling it. And she gave it to some of us, and I thought that was a really neat way. That kind of sounds like a
Mm.
PQ
That sounds like a
exercise.
PQ rep. Yeah, focus on
Yeah.
the smell. You know,
Yeah.
when you're eating, I think we all eat, right? So
Hmm.
when you're
Right.
eating your lunch, really notice the tastes. How
Hmm.
many times we just gobble it down because we're working on
Hmm.
something else?
Yeah.
Do some PQ reps as you're chewing and just notice and feel how that calms down your nervous system. And, you know, I have that hyperachiever. I like to achieve. You can, but my whole life I achieved by pushed by stress and anxiety. You can actually
Yeah.
achieve in ease and flow. It doesn't have to be stress and pushing and trying harder.
Yeah.
In fact,
And the next thing, and never really sitting and savoring. You know, literally, someone asked me, I recently had a book signing, and they said, "What did you do after your book signing?" I said, "I was on to the next thing." I like
yeah,
that was the celebration. It wasn't a post celebration.
that's the
But you're right. Just
hyperachiever.
a, yeah, I definitely have that hyperachiever.
Yeah.
Michael and I recently got the books. And
Uh-huh.
so this will be good for us. So this is great. So for those that don't have the book, we were skimming it, and yes, exactly. Michael's doing his demonstration, and so because we all lead so many different businesses and have so many different roles, kind of like a gift of just being able to learn. It's really about being healthy and longevity. Even if I have to have agility and be flexible, but I still can have longevity in terms of like your life and your impact. And I just think I watch my children in their 20s. That whole generation, it's just everything is anxiety, and it's like a Xanax. So you know, whatever they need to. So, and then it spins into something else, and then you need another thing. And it's just like, you know, giving them some additional tools, because we work a lot, we mentor a lot of people. You know, Michael has a mentor recently, an athlete. You know, he was dealing with some stress in college placement. They just get so worked up.
Yeah.
Things we didn't have these tools. Like we didn't know
No,
we need to do a PQ rep.
no, we
We
didn't.
could, we could we could shift our neurons and our brains and our mind, have a whole different paradigm shift, and have a whole different impact on our
Mhm.
lives.
Yeah. I'm also a certified energy leadership coach, and these two go hand in hand. When you shift your energy from, um, you know, maybe being apathetic, like, it's whatever it is, whatever, or anger, which is we would call level 2 energy, just angry all the time, or level
Hmm.
3 energy, which is how I spent a lot of my life, which is I'm good, it's okay. And when you
Mm.
have that level 3 energy and you're just pushing through everything, you're ignoring the underlying feelings and emotions that you're really
Hmm.
feeling. And then, you know, level 4 is like helping people, but 6 and 7 is like joy. I feel like, and we all experience different levels of energy and we go to different levels when we're under stress. But for the most part, I am joyful. And because I'm started to feel my feelings and don't keep that energy bottled up. And I I just, you know, just feel joy in that, and we can do that, and you can achieve feeling that and not feeling the stress and push. And so there's a story in a book called U Squared by a guy named Price Pritchett. And the story is about a fly. And the fly is trying to get out of a room through a closed window, banging and banging against that closed
Mm.
window time and time again. The strategy makes sense to the fly. Try harder. That fly
Right.
is doomed. It's going to die trying harder. 10
Mm.
seconds of flying time away is an open door, but the fly doesn't see it because it's focused on trying harder.
Wow.
Positive intelligence is the open door to help you feel joy and to change your life. I'm telling you. And it's not reading the
Wow.
book. It's actually doing the work.
Well, I tell you, I've known you, Emily, since I was 22.
Oh my
And
God.
this new Emily is like, I mean, she's refreshing. And you're just so, I mean, it is, I tell her all the time, I want to be like her when I grow up because the growth is, to have witnessed this maturation. And that's one of the reasons why Michael and I, well, one of the many reasons why we wanted to have you on, because there's so much that people can glean and learn and really transform their lives and be empowered to do so. And it's not so costly, like
No,
$150 for a therapist every Tuesday night.
no,
And
it's
so, yeah. And so how do you how do you deal with the people that say, oh, that's so lofty and it's too touchy feely for me. I'm hardcore. I'm about data. How do you deal
no.
with those leaders or people that if you just gave it a try, even though it's different and outside of your comfort zone, it could be a lifesaver and a
Well,
game
we have
changer.
number one, it's based on science. Number two, so we have data to back up what's happening. Number two, we have data from all the people that have taken it, showing the metrics of how they've changed their lives, how their wellness has improved, their ability to coach others has improved, their performance has improved. We've got a lot of metrics on the website, but the people that are interested in data, data is good. And
Mm-hmm.
there's more than just data. Our data channel is in the left side of our brain where the saboteurs live. If we focus on data all the time, we are using half of our brain. Because when you have that hyper rational saboteur, you can relationships get in the way of you just want the data. You're not,
Mm-hmm.
you can look in the book about the general thoughts that come up for the people that have the
Mhm.
hyper rational. It's all about the data.
Right.
And there's so much more than the data.
No people still.
Especially now, it's the people. And you can say people, but people can pick up on when you're just saying people, right?
Yeah.
That's
Mm-hmm.
our empathy channel. Our empathy, I can tell if you're in the data channel because you're just all about data, 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 data. And I pick up on that with my empathy channel and feel like you're not hearing me. You're not creating a
Mm-hmm.
psychologically safe place for me to be, things like that. When it comes to come back to work, a lot of people are being told, come back to work. If it's all about the data, because we need people in the office
Mm-hmm.
because, or it's because we need,
We got a lot of real estate that's not being
real
used that we
estate, the
can't divest
restaurants,
of.
that's all data. You're not addressing the people stuff. And guess what? The people
Right.
are going to leave. And I think,
Yeah.
especially in the government, we don't tend to monetize the cost of somebody leaving.
Mm.
We
Mhm.
don't look at,
Yeah.
Yeah.
how many years do we spend training them, and how much is
The
it going to cost to
retention.
hire a new person? Businesses do, but government doesn't as
Mm-hmm.
much.
The investments we've made in education and training and travel and not only that, we're talking about bringing in other people. There's a learning curve. So that gets to what Michael said about production. So,
Yeah.
you can't expect it to be the same delivery date when I bring on a new person that's got to kind of come up to speed. So that learning curve is a little bit steeper. And so it's
Yeah.
going to be a little bit more costly to get there.
Right. To all of
Yeah.
the people stuff. I don't care what processes you have in place. Look, I rewrote there was a process for like how do you document your negotiations when I worked for the Navy, call it the business clearance, right? I rewrote that process under a project, a Lean Six Sigma project. I'm sure the business clearance process time frame hasn't changed at all because we changed the process, but we didn't address people's thoughts, like the stickler who might have to
Right.
read everything and change the wording, or the controller or the avoider who's like, oh, I know it's in my inbox to review, but I'm just going to not do it today. I mean, we didn't address any of that. We didn't address the people
Right.
side of it.
Oh my God. I love it. I love it.
You know,
Wow.
you said that this process actually helps your brain grow like a muscle.
Mhm.
Uh, so I was just curious, has there been any medical research done with this technique to
Mm,
review this new muscle and what it does and to see,
yeah.
I'm very interested because it is, and Adrian is as well. We've had family members that have suffered
Mhm.
from dementia and issues of the brain. So I'm wondering if this technique could probably help in some form or fashion.
I don't know
Mm,
about
that's
that. I don't know
good.
about the science behind that with dementia, but if you go to
Mhm,
Positive Intelligence website, positiveintelligence.com, there's
mhm,
a tab called Science, and
mhm,
there's several white papers on that tab. And then also in the book, he really gets into the science behind it. And they
mhm,
can show that you're increasing your ability to not our mind is set to automatically go to negative, right?
mhm.
It's like
Mhm.
danger, there's a tiger there, our survival brain.
Right.
Right
Danger, Will
now, the
Robinson.
danger is Michael looked at me funny, or there's an
Right.
email that came in, or I messed up on this brief. That's not really danger, but we still feel the same.
Yeah.
And so you're strengthening your ability to not feel that way, to be
Mhm.
calm and react with a positive rather than negative emotions. I'll give you one more example. About a year ago, I was at the airport waiting for a flight to go visit my daughter in Denver, and I had tickets to go to Red Rocks to see Steve Miller Band with Anna. And the plane that was cut, it was a small airport. The lobby was crowded. Everyone, the waiting area was crowded. The plane we were supposed to take got struck by lightning twice, so it turned around and went to Richmond. It was coming into Charlottesville. It didn't come in. And so, bottom line, to make a long story short, you can hear everyone's phone going off, ding, ding, telling them that, delays, and everyone's going, shit, dang it,
Mhm.
cussing and
Right.
frustrated. Ugh, people are in line yelling at the flight attendants who, have nothing to do with it. I'm just sitting there calm, okay, this is
Right.
what it is. Our stress comes from resisting what is. But I
Yes.
but I did
Wow.
and I
That's a
did
tweet
wanna yeah,
message. The stress comes from resisting
what
what
is.
is.
And
Mhm,
I did wanna go see
Write that
Anna,
down.
so I was able to, do PQ reps to stay calm, and instead of getting all pissed, and maybe the old Emily would have said, "Fine, Anna, I'm sorry, I'm my," because the flight kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. "I'm not gonna come, I'm just gonna go home." I might have missed the flight, but I was able to think, "Well, what else could be true? What other options do I have?"
Mhm.
And it just so happened I was on American, I think. There was a Delta flight leaving at 5 that night. We are supposed to leave at 9 in the morning. I was at the airport a long time, but I was able to um, buy another ticket for the Delta flight. Now, yeah, I had 2 tickets now that I paid for, but I knew I had bought a reimbursable from American, number 1. And number 2, I could use my navigate power and think at the end of my life, looking back, what's important to me now?
Mhm.
It's to have that time with my daughter at that concert. So
mhm,
Mhm.
buying another ticket, I'm gonna do it.
mhm,
And so
I
calm,
love
cool,
it.
collected, and I made it there. And I did not feel stressed the entire time.
mhm.
Feel
What
any
would what would you say about the people? Because let me tell you, I used to work for a bully when I used to work for the Navy, and this bully would find any little reason to bully me.
Mhm.
Persistent every time, every opportunity they would get. So my little danger antenna was always up, and I would always think of, well, what could be the worst case scenario? And I would be 2 steps ahead of that worst case scenario. And let me tell you, I because I was always 2 steps ahead and I was always correct. That's what was going to happen.
Mhm.
So, what would you say? How could positive intelligence help someone in that type of situation?
So, in the 7-week program, it's called the Foundations Program. I mean, you're brand new. This takes a lot of practice. I've been
Mm,
doing positive intelligence for 2 years.
mm,
Shirzad's been doing it for much longer. So just like physical fitness, you don't just stop going to the gym. You continue
Mhm.
to do these PQ
mhm,
reps. You continue to get your mental fitness stronger. I think what you did is looked at yourself. You can point
mhm.
at your boss. He's bullying me.
He
You
was.
said, I got three fingers pointing back at me. I
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to choose how I react to his bullying, and I have
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
options that I can take.
Mm-hmm.
And I can let it get to me, or I can let it just not get to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's one thing to say, yeah, it didn't get to me, but you really feel it got to you. And it's
Mm-hmm.
another thing to just, yeah, it didn't even bother me.
Yeah.
And that takes strengthening your mental fitness, and
Oh
it
yeah.
takes awareness, and it takes self-compassion. But
Yeah.
the other thing that positive intelligence offers is once you go through that foundations program,
Mm-hmm.
there's another program for teams where you're able to, we have different modules. One is trust. You're able to build
Mhm.
trust in this module. Another one is healthy conflict. We are not really taught how to have healthy conflict. How do you have
That's
a discussion with your boss
good.
about how you're feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you both have installed that operating system, you could say, my judge is, and my, I'm making it up, victim, I don't know, I'm just making it up, are kind of feeling that you have these negative emotions towards me, and can we talk about it? And if you both have that operating system installed, you're able to talk about it a little more if you've developed trust and healthy conflict. And then we also teach
Mhm.
how to have mutual accountability where team
Mm-hmm.
members hold each other accountable and help each other rather than waiting for the boss to just like deal with that employee or
Yeah.
whatever.
Or
So
sabotaging each other
yeah,
strategically too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you what you brought up is, probably not a 1 or 2 pound challenge, right?
Oh
Mhm.
But
no, the Freddy Krueger claws were out.
yeah, yeah.
Well, well, I know we're almost out of time. Is there anything else you want to share, Emily, that maybe we didn't ask because, or a resource we want our, or waited for them, for the listeners and the viewers to follow up with you to learn more, to receive your coaching? I mean, how can they get a hold of you? And is there anything else you want to share?
Okay. I would just share that you can go to positiveintelligence.com. That's where you can take the saboteur assessment. You can look at the science behind it. You can understand the programs. If you want to bring it to your government organization or even a large contractor that supports the government, you can reach out to me. I'm available on LinkedIn. You can go to the government tab of our website and click to schedule a meeting with me. You can also email me at emily@positiveintelligence.com. So there's lots of different ways to reach out to me. And we have people that are in other areas like small business that are in sales that have accounts for like small business or for high tech companies. So we have other people. We are also bringing this to hospitals and
Oh,
medical
good.
professionals.
Nice.
So yeah, it's been very helpful for
Yeah.
them. So there's lots of, I guess what I would say is there's lots of opportunities to use this. If you're implementing a diversity, equity, inclusion program in your
Mhm.
organization, a lot of times DEIA, we just focus on, the data and not as much
Mhm.
about the empathy and the PQ channel, the right side of our brain. So
Yeah.
just get curious, do your own research, reach out to me if you're interested. If you want to learn more about my personal coaching, you can go to emilyharman.com, and there's information there on the personal coaching that I do besides positive intelligence. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Emily. And it's always a pleasure. You've coached and mentored me. Like I said, I was 22. I'm almost 52. Um, so that's a long run. That's a career, and definitely poured a lot into me. And so I don't take the words you say lightly. I think you emulate and model exactly where many of us are trying to go. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share with others, and to our listeners and viewers. Hopefully, you take advantage of this opportunity to engage with Emily Harman. She is definitely true to who she is and what she's able to bring to your organization. And so I'll yield to Michael to close us out. And over to you, Michael.
Well, Adrian, you took all the words out of my mouth, so I don't have anything else to
That
say. But I do.
might be a saboteur coming in there, Michael.
But I would like to thank Emily for her time and for expounding on the topic of positive intelligence. And like Adrian said earlier, if any of our viewers would like to reach out to her, please do so. Her LinkedIn account is in the chat, along with the positiveintelligence.com /government. And we look forward to seeing you on our next podcast. So
Yes, and you'll hear more about this, right? Because Michael and I are committed to reading our book.
Good.
not only reading the book, but I plan on bringing it up at my place of employment to see if we can delve into positive intelligence, and maybe Emily can come in and expound on the topic with us.
Sure, happy to do that. Thank you both for this
Thank
opportunity to talk about my favorite topic.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners and viewers. Until next time, see you later, and
Until
be
next
safe
time.
and be positive and intelligent. Thank you.